right, hello everyone. We're going to talk about how we live in the moment and design for the future. But first of all, I'm going to test how well you guys are living in the moment right now. So I'm going to test the speed of your brains. So take a look at the screen and read carefully. See, 500 words a minute, not that bad, right? And also means that we have like 1.7 seconds on Facebook and Instagram on average when you flick through each post. Another interesting fact is that people below 20, they go through their content on their feeds twice as fast as people above 50. So you understand the game of trying to capture your attention in the feed from a brand is a really, really challenging notion. And as you've seen, like our brains are really fast, and which means the way the mobile world works and how you guys are using it is also working really fast. And to put this in context, if we would actually print out all of your feeds on Facebook and Instagram and we stack them on top of each other, you would actually scrolling through 300 feet, equal to Big Ben, every day. That's what we're all doing on a regular day. So we really have to make our content relevant, immediate, and very meaningful. Otherwise, it won't stand out. And we've done some interesting stuff at Facebook where we actually measure like the behavior throughout the day. How do people spend time on the platforms? And 70% of the time is the really immediate. It's like on the go, you're on the bus, in the elevator, you're at a meeting, a little bit boring, maybe a panel, not this one, where you flick through some stuff. It's really quick and just want to sort of discover some new things. I'm like, okay, oh, some fun like Adidas shoes, sunset, a friend's new baby. Those things are really fast. They're like 6-8 seconds maximum, because literally I have to get off the bus. I don't want to have a face plant in the pavement. You have to get the things said in a short period of time. The next one, the interactive one, is when I'm actually interacting with the content. You're commenting on latest Brexit joke, or like I'm like putting a like on a friend and her new job position. Like I'm doing something with the content. That's 20% of the time on our platforms. And 10% of the platforms is when you're like leaning back, you have time, the Adele, carpool karaoke, again, you just sort of enjoy watching because you have time. And we're all like doing these things throughout the day. And this puts a lot of like sort of interesting pressure on how you make and develop campaigns these days. So the thing that the implications is that you cannot avoid doing the really short piece. If you want to get scale and reach like a really like mass audience of your idea, you have to like sell your stuff really, really quickly in a very short period of time to get the idea out there. Then you can get into the interactive and longer pieces. But to get scale, you need to be really good at honing those questions. And this sounds like complicated. We have like an accordion of video here now. We have everything from a few seconds, to really long. How do we deal with all this? What is holding it together? It's actually one thing that's holding them together. And it's something that if you don't do this, you will actually have like an average or a failed campaigns on a platform. Is that you have to make it interesting. If you don't do it interesting in the intro, people will just flick by. If you're doing something with like a regular scene, there's a pan over a field, forget those. Like establishing shots is something we're trying to just get away from doing things on our platforms. So interesting is the way that you capture people's attention really, really quickly. And this is not a formula. This is actually like a new art form. where we encourage people to play more and just like have more fun with this. Interesting enough is that this has actually been around for like centuries, not just on the mobile platform. All books usually starts with a prologue with something super interesting happening, and then you get into the book. TV series starts out with this like super surprising things, or trailers for movies. So interesting has been around. It's just that we need to start thinking about it, because the way we're all like working on these platforms sort of demands that we capture your attention really quickly and really sell why we should earn your attention in engaging. So to start talking a little bit about this, I have the wonderful Ian Tate and the amazing LA. And we're going to discuss a little bit like the implications for brands and agencies doing this. So when capturing people's attention, and this is for you, LA, you worked with Nokia as one of your clients, so you had a little bit of a head start working in like the mobile experience. So have the creative opportunities kind of changed, and how do you tackle this kind of new storytelling, in this space at Stink?
Yeah, I'm really lucky in that I cut my teeth coming up with ideas for cool ways to use mobile phones to do stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
And that's really been the sort of like the backdrop to everything that I've kind of gone on and done. I think the difference these days is that mobiles are the first port of call for absolutely every piece of content that we create, or all experiences out there. That's how we find out about the amazing television ads, and that's how we, consume stuff off of Netflix and all the rest. So I think, really the sky's the limit for how we introduce stuff to people now. And at Stink Studios, it's about the clicker. I've got some slides. So I'm very new to Stink. I've just started. And I think my favorite thing about what the company does is it's about creating really valuable digital and film experiences for people. So really giving people stuff that they want in their lives and on their mobile phones, rather than acting like a sort of a hurdle or a border to kind of get to that stuff. And a beautiful example of that is the piece that they made with Google Creative Labs, which was called Inside Abbey Road. This is our in-house platform for rendering personalized films for mobile in real time. It's called RITA, which stands for rendered in the air, and basically that's about taking personal assets and then working them into the video. So we've used that for people like Strava and Burberry, and it's very cool.
I actually remember that Strava thing, because I'm like into biking and seeing like this amazing animations with all my stats, super relevant, and I actually spent like a lot of time on it.
It's it's an amazing piece of kit, and the fact that we can turn it around straight away is it's pretty magic that way. Yeah, and then the last little point I think about mobile, and certainly about Stink Studios, is taking. Yeah, it's designing work to share, because that's really I think that's one of the core cool things about mobile technology, is that it is about sharing and kind of, representing yourself out there in the world. And this was a beautiful piece of work from 2 years ago for Spotify, which took your listening data and then generated that into like a little story about yourself, which I always loved.
Cool.
Yeah.
So Ian, working at Wieden+Kennedy, and with all these new ways of people behaving on all these new platforms, not just ours, but all the other ones as well. Like, how do you navigate this with the clients? How do you get them to sort of embrace this or like feel comfortable?
So, in answer to your question, I think it's really hard to get people to adapt themselves to this kind of new sense of how work exists in the world. I don't know, like I think if you're of a certain age, and I put myself in this bracket, like it's very easy for me to imagine what it's like for a TV ad to go out into the world and arrive in living rooms across the country, and sort of families settling down, kind of watching the X Factor or whatever. It's like, okay, I can visualize what that feels like for all of those people to be there going, okay, cool, I like this piece of filmic content. And it's much harder for people to go, okay, I'm about to put out a thing that someone's going to look at 1.3 seconds of it, and I don't have any idea of the context they're going to watch it in. They could be in a coffee shop or on a bus or on a thing. And it's much harder to kind of go, even if the numbers make sense, it's much harder to get that feeling of like, this is going to make a cultural impact when it's so fragmented. And I think it's a really interesting thing of how you get people over that hurdle to go, actually, this is way more interesting because it's a thing that's really personal. It's in someone's pocket and it's in their life in a kind of completely different way. And I just think it's a much bigger kind of mind shift about how work's showing up in the world and what it feels like, that we often don't ask that question of like, how does it feel when it reaches ordinary people in their lives? And I think there's a lot of just everyone just kind of refocusing their minds around that that needs to happen.
Yeah, and I also think the way the lengths of things and the way we're making things like super short and super long, like the Inside Abbey Road, for example, it had like dwell times around 45 minutes that people spent. So how do you like navigate getting people immersed, but it also you need to like sell them on it so lots of people also see it. How do you like work with that with Inside?
So I think, first of all, you have to create something that is really valuable, that people, really kind of believe in or want to hang out with. So that's almost like making new news, or, certainly from a production side of things, that's kind of like creating something that just wouldn't exist otherwise. And then once you have something, once you have an idea that's big enough, then the trailer for it or the short form little kind of ads for this experience kind of almost write themselves. And I think that's what the guys achieve so beautifully with Inside Abbey Road.
Very cool. I can also imagine that the people who are into it really found them because of the way people get found things, especially in the interest like Abbey Road.
Yeah.
The
Beatles will do that, all right.
They do. But I think, on context also, I think that's also a very interesting question. Like, in what context does your like ideas appear? Was that a factor as well?
I think context is absolutely fundamental to everything on mobile and elsewhere in the world. So for a start, to your point, Ian, to not think about it as a mobile screen and it has to behave in a certain way, to just envision mobiles as extensions of our characters and of ourselves out into the ether of the internet is the kind of first kind of, cool, exciting way to think about it. And then if you consider the context of what at any given moment during the day a human being will be doing in their life, on their phone, what they're up to, that's how you get to great insights that will give you, the beginning hook or a brilliant idea. And then the context of how we then deliver film or stories or whatever the piece might be is kind of relevant to that as well. So in Facebook, square videos, you want it really punchy, beautiful art direction to get people's attention. You can't always rely on sound to do that. Versus, for example, writing for YouTube pre-rolls, you have to get people's attention straight away and then sort of reward them for hanging out with you afterwards. To portrait video, to all of the other contexts of the actual format.
Yeah. No, I think, yeah.
So, I think one of the other things that we've all kind of got wrong is we look at this and we kind of go, it's video. And like everyone knows that video is probably the most important thing online, the most important kind of format for content now. And we go, it's video. Therefore, the right people to make a piece of video that's interesting would be the same people that are right for making, a well-told story that might exist over 2 minutes. And it's like, they're actually completely different skills. And just because it's a piece of video doesn't mean that you put the guy who does that on it. It's like, yeah, it's a moving picture, but if you've only got 1 second, it's more like thinking about like a very quick piece of digital out of home that you're kind of, you're getting on with your day, and it's like you want something that's going to turn your head like it would in a subway station or on a poster by a road rather than something else. And so I think we sometimes go, because the name of the output is video or audio, we treat it a certain way rather than going, okay, where does this fit? So context is everything. It's like, what's someone thinking? What are they doing when they're going past this? They're effectively just like dashing through this. So
yeah, so I always say that the really short video is like, it's a still. It takes really short time to like interpret a still. But then again, you have to make it visually super, super interesting. And also those like short little pieces where you can actually make many of them. We talked about experimentation, like how do you get to ideas that sort of more live in the moment and play around? And you had some previous experience on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the video was up there from the Old Spice thing, and I sort of hate banging on about that because it was years ago now, but it's probably one of my favorite examples of a thing I've been involved with where there were so many reasons that that thing shouldn't have worked and shouldn't have existed in the world. But the team were having so much fun with the thing. The clients, you know, through doing rounds of work before that, so the responses campaign wasn't the first thing that Old Spice had done by a long way. But over time, the clients and the agency had built up this kind of rapport and this trust, and they got a sense of how they spoke in the world. And, you know, when I went over there into Portland, it was like, you guys should just make this guy speak to people on the internet. They had this character that women wanted to be with and men wanted to be, and it's like, people will lose their shit if this guy talks to them on the internet. And sure enough, they kind of, you know, we figured out a way of doing it. And I remember really vividly a conversation with the creatives on it. You know, a few hours into it, they were like, this is amazing, I love this. It's like I can hear the people laughing. And you realize that because they hadn't really done a lot of internet stuff before, and that was my background, it's like, oh, that's what happens online. It's like you can actually, like, people can respond to you in real time, and so you can hear them. And I remember at the time sort of going, oh, it's a bit like, you know, when Hollywood actors say, I'm going to go to the stage. I want to go back to the stage so I can kind of connect with my audience. It's like, that's the difference between the new world of things where it exists in real time and people are feeding back. And it's much more like improvisation and being able to kind of to change things all the time and go, oh, that happened, therefore that was interesting, let's do this. And it requires a different set of skills and a different set of disciplines. And, you know, we were talking earlier, like it used to be that to be a creative director, it was about having an immovable sense of this is right. And it's like, and you had to be the person that was like, my gut is the thing that tells me that this is exactly the right thing and you will never prove me wrong. And it's like, you know what? Nobody knows what's going on anymore. And it's like the way to be a great coach is like, let's give this a go. Let's see what happens. Like I have an instinct about what's going to happen, and it doesn't mean that my instinct is any less valuable or any less good, but you have to be fluid and you have to be able to kind of go on a journey with the work. And I think the best clients and the best creatives now are the ones who embrace the journey rather than obsessing about the destination.
And I also think the way mobile works, when you get so much response and you can see what's actually working and you can tweak your way to great work. And I think, you know, prototyping is a very interesting thing. Like, I know you guys have been playing around with prototyping. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
So Sync is kind of born from, you know, production company ways of working. And really it's not about creatives going away into a darkened room for 3 weeks and then appearing with the perfect script. It's about deadlines and budgets and those things being facilitators of great ideas rather than, you know, scary sharks in the water. And what we do is it's about creatives and tech people working really closely together, and then straight away kind of developing and experimenting and building little things. You know, there's a point about intangible work is really hard for clients to buy, right? Like if you're basically carrying on like a mad scientist and talking about something that's never been done before, you kind of have to help people to buy that work. And I think prototyping is 100% the way to do that.
Yeah, it's also a great way for clients to get confidence. You prototype, you put a little small version out of it. Yeah. Hey, look, it's resonating with people. Let's make it bigger and more. So from this, you know, talking about this sort of capturing people's attention and finding all these sort of avenues of using video, like what's the one thing you, LA, want to sort of this audience to take away from this?
I think it's about building things and prototyping to make the intangible tangible. I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but I think, I can't speak highly enough for that.
All right, Ian Tate.
I don't know, this might sound trite, but I think just everyone having a bit more fun. I think there's a sense at the moment that there's so much stuff that we can and should do, and there's so many things that it's like, it just feels like we get very bogged down in like trying to thread these very difficult strategic needles through every single channel. And you look at so much work now and it feels like it ticks all the boxes. You're like, okay, I can see what the brief was. I can see that the answer makes sense. but it just feels joyless. And I think it's because the people who were making it weren't having any fun. And everything that I've done that I've been really proud of, and I'm using fun to kind of go, and actually that some of that might be about having a sense of purpose or something else, but there's a bit of people in the work that they really believe in it passionately.
Yeah, it's usually really hard, but it is fun at the same time.
Yeah, but I think that's the work that when you look at it, people want to be around it. They want to play with it. They enjoy the fact that it feels like an enjoyable piece of work. And I think that's the thing. Just like we need to all find ways to kind of empower each other to kind of be really great and do the things that we're good at and have some fun with these platforms. And like you said, experiment and prototype and make some stuff. And, I think there's a lot of nervousness because, part of that thing of people were to feedback in real time, it's like, what if somebody doesn't like it? What if one person basically says a negative thing about it, and we've become paralyzed by the fact that there will always be a couple of trolls that think your work is a bit shitty, and it's we just have to deal with that. That's just the way of the world now.
No, absolutely. And I think in terms of experimenting, kind of my final note on this, I think the interesting thing here is like this generation of creatives and also this generation of clients actually get sort of define mobile storytelling. None of us was around like when, invention of the television and television advertising storytelling. But this generation actually gets to sort of invent this and experiment and play around with it. So just encourage everyone to hold hands with agencies and clients and creatives, go around and experiment, and don't forget to be interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.